reset, rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
All right, let's bring on the guest, Garry Riles. He is a radio producer for a long time. He currently runs the Rewind Sports 60 on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, and he produced radio shows for Walter Payton and Gale Sayers, football legends, not only in Chicago, but in football lore. They are huge. And here's the interesting thing. Hey, Garry, welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Garry. Thank you so very much. It's a pleasure and an honor to join you.
Here's the weird thing, and producer Alan pointed this out. This is the 34th live show. And what was Walter Payton's number?
You got it. 34.
Okay. I'm just hoping for the mega tonight. Oh, the mega.
There you go. There you go.
Welcome to the show. And I can talk to you about a lot of things, but something happened this week when you were doing your show, and I really enjoyed it because I like when things are uncomfortable and they're squirming as you listen to something or you're watching a TV show and there's something very awkward and it comes right through the screen. And I think you had that moment, Garry, and you can tell me your feeling about it, but you had the owner of the Chicago Bears on, George McCaskey, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And in the middle of the conversation, you kind of dropped this on him. Hey, why don't you give the Walter Payton family 1% ownership of the Bears?
Yeah.
And he didn't know that was coming, I would imagine. And I heard him squirm for about 3 or 4 minutes trying to get out of that. And he never responded to that in the way you would like him to respond. Have you heard back from him since?
No, we haven't heard anything back from the McCaskey family or anyone from the Bears organization regarding that situation. And the interesting thing about it is I was thankful and appreciative that the chairman, George McCaskey, agreed to come on the show because once the Bears were eliminated from the playoffs and their season was over with, many may know or may not know, but Chicago fan base were calling for the heads of the general manager, Ryan Pace, the head coach, Matt Nagy, people in the front office, because it was an embarrassment. It was a debacle, and we wanted change. And so George McCaskey, they had their end of the season presser. He and Ted Phillips, the president and CEO of the Chicago Bears. And then they made individual media runs around the Chicago area, being on with the local sports talkers. And so we were able to be a part of that. And I was grateful and appreciative that he decided to come on. And of course, we throw out the questions. Is Matt Nagy coming back? What do you think about Ryan Pace? And we get the politically correct answers all throughout the interview for the most part. And he spent, I got to say, he spent 45 minutes on the air with us, which is phenomenal. And it's typically unheard of, to be honest with you, to have someone of his stature to be on for so long. But he gave us the politically correct answers. Oh yeah, we like what we're seeing. We're not happy with the season. Blah 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 blah. But the question that I posed him, which had been on my mind for quite some time, and I've been carrying it around for some time, and that is ownership, representation as far as minority, ownership, because the Bears and the McCaskey family simply don't have that in their front office or their board or anything of that nature. And so I always felt that Walter Payton, he is synonymous with Chicago Bears and football. And Papa Bear George Halas loved him. He just simply loved him. And of course, for those who may not be aware, Walter Payton, who passed away in 1999 unexpectedly at a very young age due to cancer, he had placed a bid to become the first minority owner African-American owner of a football team, the National Football League. And that, of course, was the St. Louis Rams back during the time when they were in St. Louis. And he was denied by the owners because he didn't get enough votes. And Walter was simply devastated. He was literally simply devastated and crushed that after all of his contributions and hard work and dedication and loyalty and passion for the sport, that the owners turned a blind eye to his requests. And of course, he's no longer with us. So it's been sticking with me. And so I took advantage of the opportunity when George McCaskey came on. And after listening to all of this politically correct answers, I said, well, let's step out and tell him and ask him and see what he says. And initially, Gary, I was looking for 24% of the Payton family to be owners of the Chicago Bears franchise, but I knew it was a little bit too far outlandish. So I said, well, let me settle for 1%. And so when I posed the question to Mr. McCaskey, to George, as you just shared, he started backpedaling and he started, praising the Payton family and the contributions of Jarrett, the older son of Walter Payton, and of course Brittany, his daughter, and Connie, his wife. And he never answered the question that, that's something that we would look into. That's a great idea. None of that. And so my job was to get that out there. And I told him in the interview, hey, listen, it all starts with an idea. You put some legs on that idea, get some people around that idea, discuss it, marinate on it, and you see what happens. And as of a week, we haven't heard anything. So I was just happy that I had the opportunity to put that question to Mr. McCaskey.
Do you think he thought, well, you ambushed me? I was not expecting this, and there's no way I could answer it with, oh, yeah, we'll give the Payton family 1%. I understand that. He can't make that decision on his own, I'm sure. But I can't imagine them. Well, here's the thing. Let me go back. This is something that they should have done on their own. I just think it's good karma. I believe in good karma. I think it's something the Bears should extend to the Payton family and say it's 0.5%. The Bears are worth, I think, $3.5 billion.
Right.
That's their value.
Right.
I don't think it's going to kill them if they give the Payton family 0.5%. Walter Payton was iconic to the Chicago Bears and to football. And they should use that as okay, the team has been crap for many decades. It's not just this last season. And they've been hemming and hawing about why it's bad and all this. But it's time to just do something that makes it all kind of feel better and just do something in this department, because the team could be crap for another who knows how long.
Yeah. Gary, that's a great assessment as far as this team is concerned. And to answer your first end of the question, I didn't take it as if he may have thought that I ambushed him, for the simple fact that he had spent 45 minutes on the air with us. And prior to coming on with us, I did ask him, is there anything that we should stay away from or you don't want to address or discuss? And it was open forum for him. So I don't think that he felt ambush. I think he was certainly caught off guard because we were going along with his Q&A as far as the politically correct answers to all the questions that we were asking. But I think he was surprised by the question in its own right. And I guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you because my wife always say you can't guarantee, but I say 99.9% certain that he took that question back to Virginia McCaskey, Ted Phillips, to the people in place and said, we need to think about this and kind of evaluate this thing, because the great Mike Singletary just interviewed for the defensive coordinator position for the Bears this past week. So that was an indicator for me that they're thinking about this. But as far as the Payton family getting a piece of, and you're right, 0.5%. It doesn't matter if it's 0.5%, 1%. I thought 3.4% for 34, whatever the case may be. This is something that the family themselves should have addressed and made happen. They didn't. It didn't happen. I think it's a step in the right direction for them, and it's something that they seriously have to consider and think about, for the simple fact that what Walter Payton means not only to the city, but to the sport itself, the National Football League. And when you have the Man of the Year award every year to remember, in my opinion, the greatest football player to ever lace them up, the least that the Storybook franchise could do is talk to the family and ask them. They may not even want it, but ask them. We would like to give you 1% ownership of this team.
There is no black ownership in the NFL right now.
That's exactly right. I mean, you have, I think, a minority owner, but no African American. Garry, there are 6 head coaching positions open after the season, right? There's one more job to be filled. That's down in the Houston Texans. None of the 6 positions that have been filled were filled with African Americans. One by a minority, but none by African American head coaches who are looking for an opportunity. So as far as ownership is concerned, certainly there are no African American owners in the National Football League.
Let's go back to when Walter Payton wanted to get the St. Louis Rams. How qualified was he as far as what you need to own an NFL team?
Well, from what I understand and recall, he had a substantial amount of financial backers, powerful financial backers who were willing to put up the money. And of course, as we all know, at the end of the day, money talks, BS walks, as they say. But Walter Payton was positioned and had some serviceable individuals in his camp, to respectable and credible individuals in his camp, to make the push forward. Because one thing about Walter, he was always prepared, and he did not want to go down this venture without making sure that all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed. He was positioned, and he felt that the package and proposal that they had put together as a team was worthy enough for these owners to vote in favor to give him this team.
And here we are 20 some years later. Has there been any other black individual who wanted to buy an NFL team and couldn't get there in the same way Walter did?
Right. No, there hasn't been any, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any other African-American businessman or interest that wanted to put up money to get a football team in the National Football League. And it's unfortunate. It scares me, Garry, the fact that it's 2021 now. We're still talking about the inequalities and racial justice and everything that's going on in this beautiful country we call the United States of America. So it's really so disappointing and sad that we still have to even discuss these topics. And when I was a kid, growing up on the South Side and watching these teams and watching Walter Payton, and then getting the opportunity to work with Walter Payton and get to know his family and Jared and Brittany, and to still see in 2021 that there's no representation or anything outside of the Man of the Year award to honor Walter Payton. To me, as a fan, as a Chicagoan, as an African American, it's almost a disservice. Yeah. It's really a disservice.
Steve just texted in and said, I think he should own 100%. His family should own 100% of the Bears. I mean, again, it's just good karma. I mean, for what he did for the Bears and the city of Chicago, it's a feel good for everybody. And I know a lot of these sports owners in all sports, it's a weird club, because I remember that Mark Cuban wanted to buy the Pittsburgh Pirates because he's from Pittsburgh, and they locked him out because they have their own little weird orbit, and they don't want anybody that's remotely not into whatever that weird orbit is in their orbit.
Yeah. And here's Garry. Here's the scary thing about all of this. Ted Phillips, who is the CEO president of the Chicago Bears, who's been with the team for 20 plus 30 years. And I understand he's a very intelligent man. He's very good with numbers and money, having gone to Notre Dame and Northwestern. But the Bears family, the McCaskey family, and the organization put more stock in Ted Phillips than they actually do the man who helped take that franchise to the next level,
to their one and only Super Bowl.
And and Ted Phillips has never run the football. He's never thrown a pass. He's never thrown a block. He's never lifted. I don't know if he's ever lifted a weight, but he's never contributed on the field the way that this man Walter Payton has, and for his family not to be recognized, honored, and again, put a proposal together and say, hey, we want you to be 1% owners in the Chicago Bears franchise. It's almost ludicrous to me. And I do appreciate the fact, Garry, that you're keeping this going.
I just, when I heard it, Jerry, I thought, come on, it seems like a no-brainer. I know I don't have any skin in the game, but just as a good karma situation, like I said, okay, I saw this 2-part series on Tiger Woods recently. It's airing on HBO or something. And something was pointed out in this that I thought, yes. And I thought this before all of this came out, as far as Tiger and his troubles with women and all that. And when he came back to play the Masters, this thing is called the Masters in the South. Right there, you know there's something still not right.
Garry, ding, 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 ding. You win, as we used to say back. You're the caller of the show, even though you're the host of the show. Because think of when all this started unfolding in 2020 with the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all of this. We kind of posed the question. We really didn't throw it out on our show, the Rewind Sports 60. But I asked, several people, do you think they should change the name of the Masters because it's called the Masters? And right. I got the response of people kind of like frowning upon me, like, no, you can't do that. I go, but you have to understand, when this game came about, when this tournament came about, they only just recently allowed women into this country club atmosphere, and it's called the Masters. And
Tiger wouldn't even be allowed in that golf, whatever that thing is, if he wasn't a champion. I mean, they wouldn't let him have the time of day. And the other thing I noticed is when he had the scandal and he came back to play the Masters, right about 6 months after, the guy that runs that thing, he had a press conference. They said, well, this is not the way we want our club represented, and he better shape. And I'm like, and Brian Gumbel was part of this, and he said, if that was a white player who did that, they would have never publicly beaten him like that. No. And it's true. This is none of our business, a lot of that. And I know I'm kind of one off from where you're at on this, but it's just weird stuff like the Bears, who have a park district running their field.
Right.
This is an NFL team. The Chicago Park District is in charge of their field. I mean, right there, it seems like it doesn't scream success to me.
It doesn't. And again, we're talking about, a new era. And the Bears continue to practice their old way of business, and teams, organizations, they're running past them. And I give the example as far as moving into the next, century, or the next era. And you look at what happened with the Chicago Blackhawks and Papa Warts, how he ran the organization. And now most of the finances or the money that's made for the Warts family is through their liquor distributorship. So Papa Warts is like 18,686 fans come through the turnstile at the Chicago Stadium, UC, or whatever the case. He didn't care. He didn't care. If you can't watch it on television, so be it. Once he passed and Rocky took over, we see the success that the Chicago Blackhawks has had because they moved into the next realm. The Cubs did the same thing. They finally moved into the next era, and they won a championship. The Bulls are finally doing it after getting rid of John Paxson, who I love, and Gar Forman. But Michael Reinsdorf felt, hey, Dad, we got to move this thing to the next level, or we're going to lose. Yeah. And they did that. So the Bears are the only team in Chicago, basically, that are still practicing old ways of doing business, and it simply won't work, and it simply won't fly.
Well, speaking of the Bulls, they got rid of Jordan and Pippen when they probably still had at least 3 championships in them. Here's the analogy I make. That's like getting rid of Lennon and McCartney in your band. I mean, what are you doing? And here they are, 23 years later, still trying to rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole different show, Garry.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think Jerry Reinsdorf is probably the best owner in the city of Chicago. But he has his flaws, and one of his flaws is, and I love to work for him, to be honest with you, but his loyalty to his employees. He's loyal to a fault. And that was the case with the Bulls and Jerry Krause, that he was so loyal to Jerry Krause and gave him the power to do whatever he wanted. And that's where we find ourselves today, 20 plus years later, trying to rebuild a franchise that the greatest of all time, Michael Jordan, built.
Yeah. All right. And it's 35 years since the Bears won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
35 years now. I mean, come on. Something ain't right.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I had a chance to send part of the interview to Fred Mitchell, longtime Scribe, award-winning Hall of Fame journalist here in the Chicagoland area, covering all ends of sports. And he applauded me and said, "Thank you, congratulations, and awesome." Because he understood and understands what it means personally as far as the family is concerned in the city, but what it means as far as race relations are concerned in this country and just in this city. And it was just something that someone needed to do and someone needed to put into place. And I guess I was the guy to pitch it to Mr. McCaskey. And again, I hope that it does not fall on deaf ears.
No, so far, I don't see them all getting together. Oh, okay. How can we get that 1% to the Payton family? And I just figured after he was done with your conversation, he just went, oh, that was interesting. I'll forget about that. I hope it isn't that, but that's the way I picture the whole thing happening. Because when I see Virginia in the skybox eating the peanut brittle and the hot chocolate, she's almost 100 years old.
Yes. Yes.
Now George is what to Virginia? I don't know that whole Venn diagram of the McCaskey families.
Yeah, I think that's like the grandson.
He's the grandson to Virginia.
Yeah, I believe that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But okay. And here this weekend we'll watch Tom Brady, who went to another team, still in the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers from a smaller city, who's a marquee Hall of Fame quarterback, still in the playoffs year after year.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's the scary thing, and I pitched this to George, and again, he had a politically correct answer for it. I said, look at the Rooney family. I said, Pittsburgh. I said, they had 3 head coaches, and all 3 head coaches have won Super Bowls.
Right. And their current head coach is a black head coach.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I go, look at the Green Bay Packers, from Bart Starr to Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and his understudy is on the sideline. So the quarterbacking situation, they've been able to master that, but yet here in Chicago, we fall short of the quarterback. We fall short of the coaching. Garry, how do you fire an African-American coach who went 10-6, and you fire him because you wanted to go in another direction?
And you're talking about Lovie Smith. They had a right. It's not like they didn't have a black coach before. They had one. He's 10-6. We don't like what you're doing. Oh, you'd rather be 4-12 or 8-8 or whatever the hell you are now.
Yeah, and when I brought the record, this past year's record, to Mr. McCaskey, I said, the team finished 8-8. He corrected me. He said, "No, Jerry, we finished 8-9."
Yeah.
So he was proud of an 8-9 record, indicating that they went to the playoffs. But that was sufficient for him to say, "Hey, we were 8-9 this past season."
Yeah.
And in my book, that's not success.
No, that isn't. Jerry, I hope you enjoyed the homage to Ohio State that Alan put together at the beginning of the show. I see you have your Ohio State stuff in the back there.
Go Buckeyes!
And your son is there now?
No. He was there. I attended the great Ohio State University back in the. I just missed the Woody Hayes days, but back in the 80s, my son fell in love with the university, and he attended in the early 2000s. God bless him. And he, once he graduated, he went on and got his master's from Northwestern University, the Kellogg School of Business. And he and his beautiful wife are happily residing, guess what, in Humboldt Park in Chicago. And Humboldt Park has changed considerably. But I said, son, you want to live in Humboldt Park?
Now, for those who don't know Humboldt Park, explain why you're saying that.
Well, Humboldt Park, again, when I was a kid growing up, we were terrified from the news coming out of Humboldt Park because of all the crime and the violence around that area. But over the years, Mayor Daley, the son, he was able to get in there and clean some things up. And of course, current mayor, Lori Lightfoot, is trying to spruce things up as well. So the neighborhood has considerably changed, but back when we were growing up, it was really, really a challenge just to even drive in the area, but it's changed considerably now.
All right. Jerry, we will talk down the road. If you hear from George, I'm not expecting that. Maybe you are. We'll talk again about this. But keep it going. I love the idea.
Oh, yeah, we'll certainly keep it going. I thank you so very much. It's a pleasure. And, if we don't hear from him, that's fine. But I truly believe, and again, with Mike Singletary getting an interview as a defensive coordinator for the Bears, to me, that's an indication that they're thinking about it, and it's a step in the right direction. So we'll certainly keep you posted, Gary. And thank you, and keep up the great work that you're doing.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Jerry Riles, ladies and gentlemen.
The world of the Payton family, Connie, Jared, Brittany, and so proud that they are still members of the Bears family after all these years. Just think the world of them. I can't speak for Brittany, but I know we can't afford Jarrett. That guy, his demands would be too. I'm kidding, of course. I have a great relationship with both of them. They're absolute naturals on the air, and just a great family. We think the world of them.
It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. WCPT. WCPT.
This the coldest sports show. You were getting the hour from 6 p.m. to 7. Chillin' with Lauren Cox and the man Marvelous. Shout out to Mr. Rouse and the Italian style. You what sports is the only politic.
WCPT. WCPT. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles. It's the freshest radio show in town. Feeling marvelous, I've been with Jerry Riles.
Welcome everybody to the Rewind Sports 60, broadcasting from our 8:20 a.m. studios, WCPT. You heard it, the freshest radio show in town, the Rewind Sports 60. Join us on our sports conversation at 773-763-9278, or check us out on Facebook, the Rewind Sports 60 and WCPT. So I'm your host, Lauren Cox, and we're going to get right into it. Playoffs. Q, Quentin Dips, the 17th letter.
Yes.
How was your week?
My week was amazing. I couldn't be any better, man. I'm just grateful, full of gratitude. You know what I mean?
Yes. And also Dan Marver, the marvelous one, who was pumped. You done created a monster with that song.
Yes, sir.
Dan Marver, what's up? How was your weekend?
It's okay. The GOAT is in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
My God.
Of course he is. And you love him, ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Jerry Riles. Jerry, what do you think about the GOAT? You the GOAT, but it was another GOAT who did his thing today.
Unbelievable. He is truly the GOAT. There's no question about it. Let me tell you something. We'll get an opportunity to talk about it. But the guy throws 3 consecutive interceptions and still advances to the Super Bowl for the 10th time in his illustrious career. Congratulations to the greatest of all time. He is truly the greatest of all time.
Solidified today.
He certainly did that. But I got to say this to you.
Better
the marvelous
than Peyton
one.
Manning?
Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning?
Who?
Yeah.
You mean the guy that does those shows and stuff?
Don't
that guy?
talk about Peyton Manning.
No, I like him. Yeah. Hey, real quick, right back to the marvelous one. What did you say about the song? The song that's
he done turned them. I mean, then he all the way in.
Let me tell you something.
All the way in. He's like jumping out of his seat today.
Listen, and congratulations to the 46th president of the United States of America, Joseph R. Biden.
Yes.
When they had the inauguration this past week, and he was getting into the presidential limo, they call it the Beast. I think we may have to substitute Marvelous name from the Marvelous one to the Beast, because he is coming out. You're stepping out, Marvelous.
Yeah, the Beast. I'm showing my true personality.
That's it. That's it. Getting comfortable, man. We're getting comfortable
that coronavirus, boy. All kind of stuff coming out.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And Lauren, I don't think we want that. We don't want that.
Come on, Lauren.
We don't want that.
No, I'm saying the pandemic.
I think
we want to get rid of that.
Oh yeah, I see. Okay. She's saying people. Yeah, energy
that they
going
don't
up.
normally do.
That's true.
Oh, there you go.
It's crazy.
We at the end of the storm, baby. It's almost over.
Please.
it might be the stylish mask, or it might be the fact I'm going to get the vaccine.
Hey, man. Oh wow. That's a whole different topic.
This is the week for the geezers.
Oh really?
Wow.
Yeah, over 65. Yeah.
Are you getting it?
Yeah,
it's okay. This is real. You can talk and say yes, not shake your head. Although we're on Facebook.
Why not? I don't want to give it to you.
No.
You don't want to give it to me?
No.
Let's do the Macarena.
Don't want to get it. How about
boom? Here come the boom. Here come the boom. It is, as Lauren Cox said, it is the fastest hour sports talk conversation in the great city of Chicago. WCPT 820 AM. We got a lot to unravel and a lot to discuss. Our guest list today, ladies and gentlemen, it's award-winning. Pretty much anyone that comes on the Rewind Sports 60, they're friends of the program, and it's definitely award-winning. Today, we have a Hall of Fame show on tap for you for the next 60 minutes of conversation here at WCPT 820 AM. Kicking off the show, you heard the soundbite from the chairman of the Chicago Bears, George McCaskey. Last week joined us on the program, and we were very grateful and thankful and appreciative that he took time out, 45 minutes of his time last Sunday, to join us to talk about numerous things regarding the Chicago Bears, the coaching staff, the quarterback future. But in particular, one important item was the fact that we posed a question, and he talked so eloquently about the Peyton family and what he thought about Brittany and Jared, and of course the great late, may he rest in peace, Walter Payton, number 34. But we posed the question to him, Lauren, about 1% ownership for the Payton family because of, it's just a new era. It's just a new era as far as sports ownership, management, the landscape as far as what's happening in this country, and it's long overdue. I don't know if you got any response, any reaction from people regarding that question, and we'd love to hear it. But we're going to hear from number 34's brother, Eddie Payton, who played in the National Football League back in the day as well. He's going to join us.
No joke.
Eddie is he's real deal. Just like, the Payton family, they're all real deal. Just like the show, real sports, real talk, just plain real. But Eddie Payton's going to be joining us to talk a little bit more about his perspective and thoughts on 1% ownership of the Chicago Bears, the Payton family, and we'll certainly see what happened. I got to tell you, it has touched so many people, and it reached across not only just here in the great city of Chicago, but in parts of the country. We're going to be joined by a radio legend, Hall of Famer, the great Garry Meier. Garry Meier will be joining us on the Rewind Sports 60 to give his input as far as 1% ownership for the Payton family. He's an icon, radio legend in the great city of Chicago. And Garry Meier is going to be joining us to talk later in the show about that as well. We'll also get an opportunity to talk about the passing of Hammer and Hank Aaron, and of course, and this guy's phenomenal as well in his own right, Larry King, who passed away as well. So let's kick things off as far as the National Football League is concerned. Again, congratulations.
Wait, did you mention the vice president, Kamala?
I did not.
Shame on you, Jerry.
Hey, and may he rest in peace as well, the great late Chet Kopic.
Oh, okay.
You're down your dance floor, Lauren. Go for it.
And the day has come. We have a woman vice president. Kamala Harris was sworn in as the first African American and first Asian woman vice president. So we're unstoppable.
She's Asian?
Part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
South Asia.
That's pretty cool.
African American.
That's pretty cool.
Howard grad, a.k.a.
Wow.
Now, you're not a sorority sister, are you?
Is she married?
Yeah, she's married.
Her husband, he was all on the campaign trail with her.
Okay. He's the first man. What is he called?
First gentleman.
He's called the second man. That's what they called in the White House now?
Yeah, second gentleman.
Wow.
Second gentleman.
No, congratulations to him. And real quick, the inauguration, the entire day was fantastic. But the young lady, Harvard grad, Amanda Gorton.
Yes. Oh my God.
Is it Gorman or Gorman? Gorman stole the show. Stole the show with an incredible poem. What did you think of it, Lauren?
I think it was Cory Booker, the congressman, he would have been the only congressman because Kamala left, but luckily because Warnock won, he's the second African American that's on Congress in the Senate, which is not good. Hopefully they'll replace Kamala with somebody that's a minority. But
they did. I think they got.
They did already.
Already replaced him.
Did they haven't replaced her yet?
Yeah, they did with a gentleman.
It was he's a Hispanic.
Latino.
Okay.
Latino.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's okay.
I can deal with that. But he talked about.
Lauren, let's not ruffle any feathers here.
He talked about the fact that how we roll when given the opportunity. Like, she's not an anomaly. Like, there are plenty of beautiful, intelligent black women, and if they have young women, and if they have the opportunity like everybody else, this is like what we do. This is how we shine. So
preach.
Everybody was just so over the moon, but it's like, I mean, that's excellence.
Yeah.
Black excellence.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tribute, and it's an unfortunate situation in my opinion. We're in 2021. And, you look at the list of the 48 previous vice presidents this country have had, and they're all white males. All white males. And you see the picture of Kamala standing tall, standing proud, and it's a shame that you talk about equality and democracy and the whole 9 yards as far as what this country stands for. Yeah, this is the picture that you see in 2021. So I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are listening out there and who really are either new to this country or had your head stuck in the sand, I'm here to tell you, black women, minority women, just my personal viewpoint, women in general, I'm just here to say, because quiet as it's kept, I'm afraid of my mother, I'm afraid of my sister, I'm afraid of my wife, and don't tell Lauren this, but I'm afraid of her. But women, but women, I'm telling you,
what are you afraid of?
You piss them off.
I know, right?
You better start running. Because women don't play around.
Oh, get out of here with that.
See, I'm telling you. Hey, man.
It's a man's world.
Yeah, it's a man's world until a woman. What's the rest of the song? What's the rest of it?
It means nothing.
Yeah.
Not a woman.
There you go, man.
Hold on,
Your way out of that.
I know, right? You see me?
Why do you think that's confined to black women?
I'm sorry? Say that again?
Why is that confined to black? It's the same way about white women.
Well, I said women in general.
Yeah, he said women in general.
I said women in general. But I've seen this before.
Yeah.
This is one thing that I have seen before.
Okay.
That I'm about to share with you. I've seen, and there's no offense, none at all, but I've seen some white women kind of take their respective position when addressed by a white woman of equal economic status, educational status, physical status, I've seen a black woman check a white woman before. I've never seen a white woman check a black woman before, but I've seen a black woman check a white woman. So that's the way that's what I've seen.
What about you, Marvis? Have you seen the other end of that?
I live a very sheltered life.
I got you.
Don't want to get in trouble.
I just wonder.
There's never trouble. Real sports, real talk, just plain real. Lauren, if they want to get in contact with us, if they want to join the program, the fastest hour in sports conversation, what do they need to do?
Go to our Facebook page, The Rewind Sports 60, and go to WCPT's Facebook page.
Hey.
Well, we think the world of the Payton family, Connie, Jared, Brittany, and so proud that they are still members of the Bears family after all these years. Just think the world of them. I can't speak for Brittany, but I know we can't afford Jarrett. That guy, his demands would be too. I'm kidding, of course. I have a great relationship with both of them. Mm-hmm. They're absolute naturals on the air, and just a great family. We think the world of them. Yeah, I'm not familiar with all of the reasons that Walter's bid for a team in St. Louis was not successful. I know that we supported it 100%. Walter was a member of our board of directors so that he could be prepared for that eventuality if it ever came about. I'm sorry that it didn't, but Walter's place in the hearts of Bears fans and in our family is solid. I remember my mom, after Walter passed away, said that she and my dad promised themselves after Brian Piccolo passed away that they wouldn't get too close to a player again because it was too painful when Brian passed, and they were able to keep that promise to themselves until Walter Payton came into their lives. He just had an irrepressible personality. Once he decided that he wanted to be in your life, there was no denying him.
There certainly were no denying Walter Payton, the great late Walter Payton. Ladies and gentlemen, he's a graduate of Jackson State University. He played professionally for the Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, Kansas City Chiefs, and, of course, ended his NFL playing career with the Minnesota Vikings. And he lived with number 34, Walter Payton. It's his brother. We love him. He's a friend of the program. He's on our TRS60 hotline. He's Eddie Payton. What's up, Eddie? How are you, man?
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me a chance to be on. I love the show, and I'd rather listen to you talk than me talk.
Hey.
Hey, Eddie, say hello to Lauren Cox, the lovely, talented Lauren Cox. Of course, the marvelous one, Dan Marver. Hey. And you love this brother. He's part of the fraternity, the National Football League. He's known as the 17th letter, Q, Quentin Dempson Studio,
what's
man.
Good, Eddie?
Q.
Hey. Hey, yo, Q.
You know, all the time talking to those guys, those great guys that you just mentioned. But I'd much rather listen to that beautiful lady.
That's usually the consensus when people check out the show, man. But how you doing, brother? Happy New Year.
Life is good. Life is good. I've been blessed to get to this point, and I get up every morning and thank the good Lord for giving me the opportunity.
Hey.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Hi, Eddie. I don't know if you heard part of that interview, but
first of all, would you marry me?
What, Eddie? Eddie, you better stop that. Eddie, you are live on radio, Eddie Payton. Come on, big guy.
Are you proposing to me live on air, Eddie?
Here come the boom.
I told y'all he was.
Here come the boom.
I said Eddie ain't playing.
No, Eddie exactly.
Eddie don't play no game.
Okay, Jerry, where's the ring?
Yeah, with this ring.
Eddie, so it's so interesting. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was about to say, I used to get a spanking in elementary school every day at 10 o'clock. Every day. The kids would go out to play and I'd get a spanking. They go out for recess and I finally told my teacher, you can whoop me as many times as you like, but I don't play.
Stop it, Eddie. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it, man. Don't stop it. I know as babies we don't like getting spankings, but when we get older we enjoy them. So, but stop it. Just stop it.
Y'all are insane.
So, Eddie, I wanted to get your opinion because, we uncovered some things when we had our interview with George McCaskey, Bears chairman, of course, and he talked about how Walter Payton was a member of their board of directors to prepare him for eventual NFL ownership. Did you know that, and can you shed some light onto that situation? Because that was something that, I didn't know, I had no idea about until that interview.
Yeah, one of the things Walter wanted most to be remembered not just as a great football player, but a trendsetter for African Americans in the game of football, to show that you can be just as good off the field as you were on the field. And he was really grateful for the Bears organization for giving him an opportunity to find out what was going on, how things work, to prepare for what his ultimate goal in life was. And that was to be an NFL owner, the first black NFL owner.
Wow.
And so we posed the question to the chairman, George McCaskey, last week, and we asked, would the Bears entertain an offer to present to the Payton family of 1% ownership based on part of what you just said regarding Walter's personality and his character, but the contributions that he made not only to the franchise, not only to the city of Chicago, to also, to the sport itself. And, it wasn't presented in a way to try to blindside Mr. McCaskey, but it was a question.
You blindsided him.
Well, maybe so, but I mean, it's a conversation, and there are thoughts and conversations, and you express those thoughts and ideas, and that's what we did with Mr. McCaskey. But some have said since the interview that it's long overdue, and that the question should not have been posed on our show. It should have been something that the family themselves should have addressed, even in light or maybe even just over the years, but maybe they should have presented it to themselves and say, hey, you know what? We should honor this guy, or we should think about their family and keep the legacy going. But clear and simple, your thoughts on the idea of the Payton family with 1% ownership of the Chicago Bears organization, the franchise, not only based on the contributions of what Walter Payton brought to the game, the city, and the sport itself, but the times that we're living in and the era that we're living in, Eddie.
Well, again, you have brought a point that is near and dear not only to Walter's heart, but to the entire family. We knew how much Walter wanted to be the first owner in the NFL, and he prepared himself during the off season. And people wanted to say, "What is he doing?" Well, he's learning how to be. If the Bears want to promote what they've done, what they've meant to the league by making Walter an owner, even posthumously an owner, I think it would be a great move on their side. On the other side, they can't do a lot of things individually. It's a league responsibility, and would have to meet the approval of the other NFL owners. And without a minority NFL owner, it's going to be hard to do.
True.
Eddie, this is Dan here. George McCaskey also said that he couldn't afford your nephew, Jared. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, if he wait a little bit and find out that Jared's getting that stimulus package from the president, he can change his mind.
Right. He getting what?
Stimulus package.
Stimulus.
No, I'm just joking.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. Sign me up.
But here's the thing. I don't think money would be the overriding factor in Jared. I think Jared loves his father. He was proud of what his father did and the way he went about doing it, and he would do it for little or nothing. So it's not going to be him making money off Walter's legacy. it would be him doing what Walter would have loved to be doing if he was here in his space.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with money. And that's not the reason the question was posed. It has all to do with what this man, your brother, Jared's father and Brittany's father and Connie's husband, it all has to do with what this man did for the franchise, for the city, and again, the sport itself. And he's an iconic figure, and he's up there in my book along with Michael Jordan, because these two guys, he's the best in football that I've ever seen, and Michael's the best in basketball that I've ever seen. And the reason I say that is the fact that both your brother and Michael Jordan, they came to a city, a blue-collar city, rolled up their sleeves, embraced us, and they went to work. They got their hard hat, they got their lunch pail, and they went to work every single day that it was required for them to play. And they played on teams, and no disrespect to the players who were on the teams during that time, but there was some very, very, very bad football and basketball teams, respectively. Walter Payton had a work ethic that was second to none, and he built that team up to a winning culture, and of course, with the cherry on top, wins the Super Bowl. Now, the other thing we beat Mike Ditka up about, he didn't give Walter the rock to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl after this guy was, single-handedly put the franchise on his back and carried us to the promised land. But it has nothing to do with the monetary or the value of the figure, because the Bears simply don't have enough money to pay for Walter Payton's contribution to the franchise. So it has nothing to do with that. The point is, it's about respectability, it's about honor, and it's about legacy. And Walter's not here with us to get that bullhorn, and he wouldn't do it anyway, but shout from the mountaintop. His kids are the most gracious, respectful, honorable people in the world. And Connie, she's just unbelievable. And Eddie, you are fantastic. Someone needs to put the idea there. And they need to put the legs on the idea so the Bears and National Football League will seriously sit down at a table and start to honestly consider this, think about this for the legacy and the honor of the great number 34, Walter Payton. That's my perspective.
Well said.
Very well said. Matter of fact, when you get through Cloudy doing that radio gig, you can come back and be my press agent.
I can come back and do what?
Be my press agent. I like it.
He said my press agent.
Well, I'm waiting. Hey, Eddie, you talking?
Not to cut you off. Here again, I agree with everything you said and the rationale behind it. But what most people fail to realize is that the NFL is a business, and they all share in revenue, so they're all on one accord. It will take more than the Bears saying, I want to do this because it's the right thing to do. You're going to have a majority owners and say, okay, you can do that because you set a precedent for the rest of us. The Cleveland Browns may say, okay, we're going to do one. We want to make Jim Brown's family, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
We're going to go get Jerry Rice's family and get him a part of the team. And you're talking $30 billion business and $30-something million for just 1%.
Listen, Eddie, don't give them, Eddie, I don't mean to cut you off, but I do. Don't give them any excuses, first of all. Don't give them any excuses, because if they could pay Roger Goodell, if they could pay him $32 million to put us through all this crap that he's put us through, they can make this happen. If the NBA could give Jay-Z 1% of the Brooklyn Nets and TLC 1% ownership in the Chicago Sky or whoever, if the NBA can do that, they can make it happen in the National Football League. So, I hear what you're saying, but let's not give them any excuses, because it's due. It's long overdue.
Can I ask a question?
I agree with what you're saying about what other leagues are doing, but the NFL is an entity unto itself. If they can give if they got together and say, we're not going to hire Colin Kaepernick so we don't like him, nobody hired him. I mean, they stick together better than the Costa Nostra. So, again, it's a great proposal. If the Bears would want to do it and the NFL was willing to listen to it, it would be the best thing that they could do as an organization to show the respect they had for not only what Walter did for the Bears and the city of Chicago, but how he did with the respect for the game and the fans. So you don't have to convince me. You have my vote. As long as you're not running for president. Because the last president, he's unemployed.
Yo, let me ask a question right quick. This is for anybody who's listening. So what does 1% mean? Is anybody in this family getting a check, or is it just like so they're getting some money?
Okay. But now, by the same token,
I own this phone.
Is anybody
in
Goodell's family getting a check?
Be like a stockholder?
But that,
again,
listen, again.
They did that even if it was honorary. It would satisfy a lot of people in the Chicago area. It would satisfy the Bears and the Payton family, that Jerry group. I would be pissed off, but they wouldn't. I mean, you need to do something. And when you brought up the mentioned Walter not scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl, but we talked to Mike Dixon about it, and the play that was called that William Perry scored on was an option.
Say that again?
It was an option play. If they would have tackled Perry, they would have pushed the ball out to Walter, and Walter would have ran around the end. So, it wasn't Dixon, and it wasn't the offensive coordinator. It was the play itself. You put William Perry in the backfield, you fake the handoff. If they tackle Perry, you pitch it to Walter. They let Perry go, and they gave him the ball. So I think Dixon has been wrong for a lot of years for saying he didn't. Because the bottom line, if you look at it, when they passed out the Super Bowl ring, every member on that team that played got a ring. It's the team concept, and Walter was the constant team player. It didn't matter whether he scored or not. Of course, he wanted to, but it didn't matter as long as the Bears won. And that's what we're missing a lot in today's players. It's too much I and not enough we.
Yeah. Well, you can't tell that to Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because he included we in this one. The guy threw 3 consecutive interceptions, 3 scoring plays, and he's going to his 10th Super Bowl. Unbelievable. Before we let you go, Eddie, and we appreciate your gracious time on this Sunday to take out and spend with us and shed a little bit more light on the legacy of your late great brother, number 34, Walter Payton, for our beloved Chicago Bears. Any real quick thoughts on the passing of another iconic figure? I'm sorry?
Garry Hank Garry.
Jerry Payton what?
He said Gale Sayers.
Hank Garry.
Both of them, Gale Sayers and Hank Aaron. Go ahead.
This has been a tough year for the people I grew up admiring when I was a young boy. I mean, I've tried to model myself after the way Gale Sayers carried himself and the way Hank Aaron carried himself. They were the role models that we should be following as young African-American athletes today, and they will never be replaced, but they will never be forgotten.
Nice.
Well said. Eddie, thank you so very much. We appreciate your time. We'll certainly will be in contact, and we don't want this subject to die. I truly believe personally that your brother, your family deserves 1% ownership of the Chicago Bears, and whatever we need to do to make that happen, I'm here to go full force because of the contributions and just the mental state of watching your brother play. It was quite rewarding, appreciative, and grateful. So thank you so very much for taking your time out, man. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
I certainly appreciate you guys giving me a chance to say something on the best radio station in the nation.
Yes, sir. Say that again.
Thanks, Eddie.
My man.
I only have one question, and I appreciate you having me on. Do you believe in a prenup?
Well, that's a good question. Yes, we believe in prenups. Yes, we believe in prenups.
Yes, we believe in prenups. Yes.
Eddie. Got a done deal?
Huh?
We got a done deal?
What do you say?
I don't know. Eddie, we got to run. Thank you, brother. I'll talk to you. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. The great Eddie Payton on our TRS60 hotline.
Are you angry at them who speculated?
No, I'm not angry at anybody. You know, I can't waste any time, Larry, getting angry at people, because something that my mom told me a long time ago, if you waste time being angry with somebody, that's energy and time that, you know, you're just burning up, and it's never going to get you anywhere. It's never going to get, and nothing's never going to get accomplished.
So you don't deal in negativity then?
No, I can't.
We're going to take a break, come back, spend some more moments with Walter Payton, as you might well understand.
I'm not familiar with all of the reasons that Walter's bid for a team in St. Louis was not successful. I know that we supported it 100%. Walter was a member of our board of directors so that he could be prepared for that eventuality if it ever came about. I'm sorry that it didn't, but, you know, Walter's place in the hearts of Bears fans and in our family is solid. You know, I remember my mom, after Walter passed away, said that she and my dad promised themselves after Brian Piccolo passed away that they wouldn't get too close to a player again, because it was too painful when Brian passed, and they were able to keep that promise to themselves until Walter Payton came into their lives. He just had an irrepressible personality. Once he decided that he wanted to be in your life, there was no denying him.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's one of the most celebrated radio personalities in the history. He's a member of the Radio Hall of Fame, award-winning show with Steve and the Garry Show. He's award-winning with Roll and Garry. He was then, at the time, #1 show in the city of Chicago for 5 years on WGN Radio. He's on our TRS60 hotline as we speak. He is the illustrious, the iconic, the supreme. I love this guy. He is fantastic, and he brings it, just like we do. Real sports, real talk, just plain real. He's really the man. He's on our TRS60 hotline. He is one and only. He's Garry Meier. Garry, how are you, buddy?
Jerry, stirring it up on a Sunday night.
You know, hey, you know, there's a lot to say on Sunday nights. The National Football League, they play their games on Sunday, and of course, the big game on Sunday night. And of course, we witnessed what the greatest of all time, as far as football is concerned, second greatest of all time. That, of course, the GOAT in Tom Brady and what he did with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Congratulations to them. They advanced to the Super Bowl 55 in a couple of weeks. But Garry, that's what we do here on the Rewind Sports 60. I learned from the best, that of course you, and so we try to stir the pot. We try to stir the pot, man. How's it going?
Thank you. Can I go back a little bit here? First of all, did Eddie Payton say free nuts? What was that?
Eddie Payton, insane.
He said prenup. He said prenup. And say hello to the lovely, the talented, the one lady who stirs the drink here on the Rewind Sports 60, Lauren Cox. Of course, the marvelous one, Dan Marver. Yeah. And you love this guy. He laced him up for the beloved Chicago Bears, 10-year National Football League veteran. He has Quentin Demps in our studio as well, Garry.
Hello to everybody.
Oh, that's good.
So, Garry, thank you.
Okay, and I have to go back to, who was speaking there, George McCaskey?
That was George McCaskey, the chairman of the Chicago Bears, talking about the great late Walter Payton.
Okay, what a great philosophy. Don't get close to anybody. You might actually feel good about having some feelings of...
Right.
Yeah.
Call them out.
Of what they do for you.
Let them know, Garry.
So, Garry,
that's a weird thing to say in itself.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why you're iconic Hall of Fame radio personality here in the greatest city of Chicago. Is the fact that you pick up on these little tidbits that many people probably won't pick up on. But you and I talked, and you had me on your show on Friday, your podcast, and I appreciate it. Had a lot of fun, and hope it's not the last time I'm on. But the reason I was on was the fact that last week we had the chairman on, George McCaskey of the Chicago Bears, and we posed the question to him: should the Payton family have 1% ownership in the franchise? And that was part of the answer that he gave us based on the question that we presented.
Okay, that says it all right there. I don't feel like you're ever going to hear back on that at all. I hope I'm wrong. I think it's a good idea, but I don't see them, after hearing that, I don't see them going, yeah, we should do something like that. It's a feel-good after a year of really nothing feeling good for the most part. Symbolically, this would be great because it just makes everything in the city come together more, if that's possible. And it's just the right thing to do at this point. Don't you think? As I see Tom Brady, oh, God, it's so poetic. He's going to his, 10th Super Bowl?
Yes.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah. He goes to another team at 43 and goes to the Super Bowl. That's amazing. And here we sit with the Bears. They have 2 appearances in 35 years, only 1 win. And you look at Tom Brady and go, okay, what are they doing that the Bears can't seem to figure out?
Well,
getting to Tom Brady. Bill Belichick who?
Okay.
Bill Belichick who?
Yeah, I know. But the issue is, should they give the Walter Payton family a piece of the Bears? I say yeah. And if it seems hard for them to do that, how about they give it to a Walter Payton Foundation or something?
Right.
Something to put that money out into something good.
Right.
How does that hurt anybody? But here's the thing. The whole NFL organization is weird to me. It begins and ends with that ratty-ass net that they pull up when there's a PAT or a field goal so the ball doesn't go into the stands. Right there,
wow.
I think, what's this? A multi-billion-dollar organization, and they got to keep the ball in the park.
Hey, this is Dan. You know why that is? Because they can put Allstate advertising on the net. That's why.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Allstate stand.
Am I the only one that thinks that's a little odd? And their excuse is they don't want fans fighting over the ball.
That's a valid excuse, right?
No, it's not.
No,
it's not. No, it's a souvenir. That's like in baseball when you hit a home run. I understand the tradition that Wrigley you throw the ball back, but you're going to put up, and they should put up netting around the dugouts to protect people from the flying bats and the ball screaming at them. But you're going to tell people, oh, give me the ball back because you need it to play again.
Right. We don't even use the ball again.
That to me, I just look at it and think, come on. You can't let the ball go into the crowd 5, 6, 10 times a game. How is that going to hurt you? The NFL's a nonprofit, isn't it? Yeah. How do they swing that one?
Yeah.
The whole thing. Okay, so your point of Walter Payton's family getting this, that makes it all feel better to me, and I think a lot of other people.
Well, I think it makes most people feel good because of the contributions that Walter made to the sport, the city, and the league overall. But Eddie Payton, Walter's brother, was on with us, and he said that it takes more than just the McCaskies and the family to say, okay, you know what, we need to really do this. It's going to take the other owners in the league, to sign off on this as well. And for me, I don't have a problem with that because, I mean, they should, and I get it. But in 2021, in my opinion, there shouldn't be a question. There simply shouldn't be a question. Roger Goodell makes $32 million. He makes $32 million. Each team contributes $1 million to his salary.
Wow.
Are you kidding me? And that's a question that you got to think about?
And this would make up for Walter not getting that team. This is a way to have the family own a portion of a team, but they don't have to give a team to somebody that don't seem to want to have a team. So this is good for them. This is cleaner for them.
So, Gary, why do you think they won't do it? I don't know if they will, if they won't, but why do you think? You tell us.
I don't see the McCaskies wanting to carve off any money outside the family, number one. And I don't know, they have the Park District running their football field, so that says a lot right there. And all the other things that have gone wrong with the Bears over the decades where I don't get it. What happened to that 86 championship team? What happened to that team? Why didn't it repeat? Didn't they disassemble it right away? Didn't it pretty much fall apart right after that?
Yeah. And we had Otis Wilson on a few weeks ago, and he said that part of the reason was the fact that McCaskey said because of the popularity of that team, that it overshadowed the McCaskey name and the team itself, and they would never assemble another dominant team like that ever. We posed that to George McCaskey, and Lauren, what did George have to say, paraphrasing?
So I asked him about it, and he basically just totally switched it up and was like, who would ever say anything bad about that team, and started like rattling off their accomplishments. And I'm like, Otis said it pretty much. It's like, he was just totally like, he just could not believe that was the issue. And I just asked him straight out, is that the reason why, you're keeping Nagy in the current regime? Because they are going to toe the company line. And, he just totally was like, no. I don't know who would ever dare say anything bad about that team. And I'm like, that team.
Okay, and that tape you just played said they don't want to get close to players, so it pretty much is true that they want to keep their distance. But the only championship team they've had in modern history was that 85 team, and you remember Jim McMahon and all those people, and you knew all of them, and the whole city was lit up by what they were doing, the Jim McMahon antics on the practice field and all that. That's what made it fun. Mm-hmm. And they somehow managed after that to suck the fun out of the whole thing.
Well, yeah, here's the deal, and George shared this with us last week as well. And the big issue, obviously, in Chicago is the quarterback controversy and quarterbacking. And he said that Mitchell Trubisky, he's what did he say? Well, like he's a clean cut guy, and he's good in the public and all that stuff. And I told him, hey, wait a minute, I'm that guy too. But I don't see you signing me to a contract. I don't see you. Hey, Gary, you can appreciate this. I threw peanuts at Comiskey Park, to fans as a vendor. So I know that I have an arm that I can throw. So I didn't understand why he didn't give me a contract. I don't get it.
He asked you if you could throw it 30 yards down the field, and you can't, but neither can Trubisky.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Mitchell!
That's a great reason to have a quarterback if he looks good in a suit.
He looked good in a suit.
He cleans up well.
First round
great.
pick.
So Gary, and we're on with the great Garry Meier. He is an iconic figure here in the Chicagoland area, an outstanding radio personality, Hall of Fame. He is the best in the business, no question about it. We appreciate him taking some time out on the Rewind Sports 60 on this Sunday. I don't know. The jury is still out as far as who the best ownership in the city of Chicago with 5 professional teams, and we can count on one hand the championships. Congratulations to the Blackhawks for, finally getting us on the map in hockey. Of course, we know what Michael Jordan did back in the day. The Cubs, they get their championship a few years back, and the White Sox are looking to get another one after 2005. But in your mind, as long as you've been in the Chicagoland area and working in the greatest market, your thoughts on who you think the best ownership is in this city?
Rocky Wirtz. Hands down. I've met Rocky a number of times. I did my show from the United Center during Blackhawks games.
Oh, Blackhawks.
They could not have been more into winning and making the fans feel like this is a product we want you to be proud of. And you can see what happened after he took over the team, and that whole organization is just top shelf. And I think they're obviously looking to get back to where they were a few years ago and are going to make great strides to do that. They have a salary cap that they have to deal with, and that comes into play. But as far as that goes, I don't have any hesitation. Rocky Wirtz.
Gary, and talking about winning, after we interviewed George last week, we basically surmised that maybe the Bears just don't want to win. It was painful, but what did you say?
I've heard that too, because they sell out all the seats when they can have people there, and they can't make any more money, so why bother to put a team on the field that's going to cost? They would just make more money if they had a winning team. So I don't understand that calculation.
It boggles the mind when you think about it, because you talked about 2 Super Bowls in 35 years, having won the one. I would imagine, and I understand it's a business, but you get in business, in my opinion, to win. whether it's in sports or any other walk of life. You try to be the best, I guess. But I want to get back real quick. You say Rocky Warts, in your opinion, is the best ownership in the city of Chicago. There's some controversy looming as far as the Blackhawk organization as well, and in the new era that we're transitioning into as far as the culture and society and the world we're living in, they're coming under pressure regarding some arguably say the best logo brand in sports, and that, of course, the Indian head. What are your thoughts on, because it is classic, it's honorable, and they do it properly. You can't even walk on an Indian head. If you go to practice in the locker room or games, you're forbidden to walk on the Indian head.
Protective of that.
Yeah.
They're very aware of where they're at as far as that logo and everything, and they do a lot of work with Native American organizations. They're doing all they can to make sure that it is respected, and they do talk to Native American organizations, like I said, to get their input. And yeah, you don't walk on that head in the locker room or anything. They're sacred on that.
So, do you think that they should honor the indigenous people, the Indians here, that say, hey, it's offensive, and you should, i.e., like the Washington football team, remove the name and the logo, or do they have a case to say, hey, we are honoring the respect and the tribe of the people and the culture?
Well, it's hard to say because they are honoring it, but then I'm not a Native American, and I don't know if my voice should matter on this. That should be a discussion they have with a large amount of people that would feel offended with that logo and name, and then go from there. I can see where it could get very touchy here.
Well, today
it's one of those things, and all those teams that have some kind of Native American logo are going through this.
Yeah, well, today, this is Dan, you get the Chiefs and the Braves and the Indians all have their chants. I mean, so, there's a lot of teams that have the same issue, and it's going to be, and so far, the Washington's the only one that's complied.
Yeah.
It's the capital.
Well, again, I'm not qualified to say, take it away, get something else. I don't belong in that discussion. I can have an opinion, but it belongs to people that are more in that group.
Well, Garry, we appreciate it. This is the Fastest Hour in Sports Conversation, and we certainly would love to have you come on back again and join us for more conversation. We miss hearing you. If people want to get a hold of you, if they want to find out where Garry is operating and working, how do they get a hold of you? How do they find you, Garry Meier?
Just go to GarryMeier.com. That's where my podcast is.
Garry, thank you so very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you,
it, and we'll
thank you all. Thanks, Jerry.
Hey, we'll send a shout out to George McCaskey. You say hello to him, okay?
There you go.
Gary, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Take care. The great Garry Meier on our TRS60 hotline. Thanks to our good friend George Bliss for help set everything up. But Garry is a wealth of knowledge. He's an icon again here in Chicago, Hall of Famer. Radio personality, and it's a pleasure to have him on to talk about some of the issues that we discussed.
You're right. It was very timely. Garry should send some love to George McCaskey. Valentine's Day isn't that far off.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said Valentine's Day isn't that far off if he wants to send some love out to George. Yeah.
Okay. Real quick, before we have to also acknowledge Larry King. We played a cut of Larry King and Walter Payton. Larry King just passed away at the age of 87. I believe complications due to COVID that he was battling as well. So our prayers go out and condolences go out to he and his family and his relatives. But I had a chance to meet Larry King several times over the years, and I remember we were at the Michael Jordan send-off at the United Center back in, 94? And it was just an honor and a pleasure to get a chance to meet Larry King and talk with him. One thing I did notice about him, he's about 5'9", maybe 5'10" or so, but he had his head was I was impressed with the size of his head.
Melon head.
I was impressed with the size of his head. But the one thing I liked about, one of many things that I liked about Larry King is the fact that he most interviewers, they read a lot of information on whoever they're talking to, whether it's a book or whatever the case may be. Larry would basically more or less get the basic information, bullet points or whatever, and then he just off the cuff, just Q&A with the subject matter, whoever he was interviewing, because he felt he'd get the most out of them. It would be a real dialogue.
Wow.
Definitely. I'll give you an example. I mean, he interviewed Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra. In fact, he kissed Marlon Brando on the lips. I mean, he actually did.
That's true.
He asked Richard Nixon if he ever felt uncomfortable driving by the Watergate Hotel, and he asked Ronald Reagan, did he feel nervous about when he wouldn't remember things? So he went right to the point.
Yeah.
I mean, even this summer, there was a case came up where the mother of Tara Reid called into his show, and that was brought up during the campaign. So he had a lot of interesting dialogues on his show, no question about it.
The longest running, the most interviews ever conducted all time. Spent 20 something years on CNN. He started in 1985, an impeccable journalist, personality, broadcaster. He will certainly be missed. Lauren, you kind of frowned over there when he said he kissed Marlon Brando on the lips.
I don't want to picture the Godfather like that.
Well, I didn't necessarily want to see it as well, but I saw it, and I mean, it happens. You act like you've never kissed a man on the lips before.
Cut it out, Jerry.
Hey, Lauren, I haven't.
No. I bet your father. No, I don't know.
No,
okay.
I've never kissed my father on the lips before.
Okay.
No.
And let's not forget Henry Aaron, too.
I've never kissed him either.
I mean, I'm talking about Henry Aaron's passing.
Now, I would have kissed Walter Payton and Michael Jordan, but,
755 home runs. Don't forget Henry Aaron.
Yeah, Henry Aaron, 755 home runs. And 1974, April 8th, Fulton County Stadium against Alpha Al Downing and the Los Angeles Dodgers. It was quite something to witness as a kid, the great Henry Aaron. And it's interesting. Do you know, real quick, we got 60 seconds. When he hit the ball out, there was a left fielder trying to climb the wall. Do you know who he was?
Left
Do you remember? Do you remember?
The left fielder of the Dodgers?
Yeah.
Well, I know Dusty Baker was in the on-deck circle, but...
Well, I mean, Ron Say was at third base. Davey Lopes was out there. I mean, that was that 74. That was that team. But believe it or not, it was Bill Buckner trying to climb the fence to get the souvenir ball. And I remember Vin Scully, they were saying, is he trying to get the ball, souvenir ball, so he can cash in?
Yeah, if you look at it, somebody had a net, too.
Yes, they did.
Couldn't quite reach it.
Hi, that's how Harry Carey got the idea. Hi. Hey, it's the fastest hour in sports conversation. Lauren, you want to take us out?
Yes, rest in peace, Hank Aaron, the greatest to ever do it, and a pioneer, truly a sense, in all senses, he was a pioneer. So I've had a wonderful time with you guys, and we look forward to seeing you all next week on the Rewind Sports 60.
If you're not married.
Peace.
Lauren Cox, Q, the marvelous one, Jerry Riles. Take care, everybody. Thanks, Devin Tingle. Have a great week. Take care, everybody.
The Rewind Sports 60.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast with yours truly, Jerry Riles, and, of course, the Honorable Dr. Chad Padromas, our second season. Doc, Happy New Year to you. Happy 2021, and happy season. The NBA is underway. The National Football League is playoffs. Our Bears are eliminated, but, of course, we're looking forward to the Super Bowl and college basketball with March Madness. There's a lot to unfold here, a lot to get into. But first and foremost, how are you and your lovely family doing?
Oh, Jerry, we're fantastic. How about you?
We're doing awesome as well, and I can tell you so much. As far as this COVID is concerned and the pandemic, and again, we continue to plow forward and see if we can get grip around this thing. But thank goodness for sports, because I know myself personally and a lot of sports fans around the country are happy that we get an opportunity every weekend to tune in to some sports, whether it's on Saturday, Sunday, and as far as college ranks are concerned throughout the week. So ecstatic for that. And we'll get an opportunity to talk more about COVID and sports. But I want to touch with you. The last time we had an opportunity to talk, we were discussing the NFL playoffs. And again, the Bears are eliminated. But we were discussing the thumb injury of the quarterback for the Rams. That, of course, Jared Goff, who due to injury to the fill-in quarterback, he got an opportunity to play. His team was eliminated. But the fact that he came back with an injury that was repaired a matter of maybe 10 to 14 days and get out there and perform, it was quite impressive. And you touched on it on our last podcast, but I wanted to follow up and get your perspective on what you were able to witness with Jared Goff's performance.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And as I mentioned last time, the idea that you can have a structure. Normally, you fix a ligament, and it takes a long time for it to mature, whether it's the thumb or Tommy John or ACL. And as I mentioned, the surgeon puts in a temporary structure to hold it while the biologic structure is healing. And it's remarkable. I mean, in the 35 years I've been doing this in practice, there's very few things I can think of that have altered an aspect of the field like that has. And so he, as you said, he got back to work sooner than he wanted, and even though they lost the game, he threw fine pretty much. And he said he was a little sore, but not all that much. So I thought that was just remarkable.
Yeah, it was remarkable, and television did a great job of showing a comparison between his throwing hand and his normal hand, and how his index finger and his thumb looked under normal circumstances compared to the restructured surgically repaired thumb. And of course he had a brace on it as well, but the fact that, as you talked about, he was able to go on out there and perform in the playoffs and execute was quite impressive.
Yeah, and it's interesting if you let your mind wander a little bit on this. This is a basic principle. So the doctor, Dr. Shin, calls it an internal brace. And so the idea is that normally when you would repair, for example, that thumb ligament, you'd put the person in a brace or a cast, like an external brace. So he was doing it on the inside. And it relies on putting pins in the bone, holding in the bone, and not loosening, and the person being able to function. So, it kind of makes you wonder. It's almost like a new principle of surgery. Could you do this with other ligaments? So I'm an ACL surgeon, as you know. And so, actually in Europe, not really here, people have used synthetic grafts for ACLs for a long time. They've tried, and they haven't really worked out well. So they're not used in the United States at all. I don't know that they're used much in Europe anymore. I think a little, but there was a period of time when people tried them. And there have been structures, going back to when I did my fellowship in Boston 35 years ago, there were people using carbon fiber to try to replace things. So as a permanent answer, synthetic substances have not been the answer. But, makes you wonder. When you fix an ACL, you make a tendon into a new ligament, and it takes a while. But makes you wonder: could you put a temporary ligament in there, like an internal brace kind of thing? Put a couple of screws in to the bone and stabilize the knee. I mean, because after you tear your ACL, most people get pretty sore and swollen, but and it's variable from people, but it passes in a matter of weeks in general. So I don't know that you could do it in 2 weeks, but you might be able to do it in 4. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole different thing. Somebody, Tariq Cohen tears his ACL at the beginning of last year and misses the whole season, right? So, if you could do something like that, he could be back maybe halfway through or before. Tommy John surgery. These are a little different than what Jared Goff had. He had a ligament that was torn and it was kind of reattached. The things that I'm talking about, the ACL and Tommy John, you're actually taking a tendon from someplace else and having it morph into a ligament. It's kind of different. But in some ways, the principle is the same. If you can put a temporary synthetic structure in that would stabilize the joint while the other one was healing, who's to say? So I don't know. It'll take somebody with ingenuity and guts to think about doing something like that, and might be kind of a big gamble to take, because if you do a big ACL reconstruction and put a temporary structure in and it fails, that's kind of a problem. But it makes you wonder. I mean, it really makes you wonder if that could be the harbinger of more things like that in our field. And actually, while we're talking about that, when you think about the implications of this, so it was maybe, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, I don't know exactly, when Jay Cutler had a pass intercepted and the player's running the other way, and he went after to try to tackle him. In the process of trying to make the tackle, he tore a ligament in his thumb. I don't know for sure, but it was probably the same injury that Jared Goff had. And, he got it fixed, but he missed the rest of the year. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but the Bears were very close to making the playoffs. They had done great. And they had a backup in Caleb Haney, who had, very accomplished college quarterback, but for whatever reason, the Bears just weren't able to get over the hump, and they just barely missed the playoffs. So, you wonder if that were today, maybe he could have gotten back in a couple of weeks. Maybe history would have been different. The whole, because he was up and down with the team, obviously, and that was an up year, right? So who knows if they'd have made the playoffs and he'd come back, maybe everything would have been different. I don't know. But it's not an uncommon injury. Rajon Rondo, I think, had the same thing that year with the Bulls. They were up 2-0 in the playoffs against the Celtics. Remember, they were doing great. And they lost when they had Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler. And he went down, and I think they lost the next 4. I don't remember, but I know they lost. So I don't know. That probably wouldn't have allowed him time to get back for that series. But it's not a rare injury, and it's just a sea change in how it's handled.
It's interesting. Dr. Chad Padromas, the Sports Medicine Update, a weekly podcast. It's interesting how much of it is a doctor's, ingenuity to test the waters or go beyond, and how much is it the athlete himself that, or when you talk about professionals, ownership pushing the envelope, so to speak, to venture into the new age of medicine. So I guess basically what I'm asking you is, how many times would an injury such as this, you talked about Jay Cutler and you talked about Jared Goff, how many times, and we talk about the ACL and the evolution of that injury and repairing it, how much is it, does it take for medicine to catch up with what we want as humans to get back out there and perform?
So I'll tell you, it's a complicated question, particularly with professional athletes. And so the main answer to your question is it the players, the ownership, is the doctor? This is entirely on the doctor, because nobody, I don't know who Dr. Shinn did his first one on, but nobody expects when you get that injury that you're coming back right away. And so, again, I don't know the circumstances of how he finally decided to do it, but I think it's probably something like him saying, well, we can try this. And I don't know if he did any other studies on animals or anything else, or cadavers. I don't know. But it might have been something like saying, well, we can try this. I can't guarantee that it'll work. You're taking a chance. It's experimental. And if you want to go for it, I can try. But I'll tell you, it's a really difficult, speaking as a practicing surgeon, it's a really hard thing to do. Because then you say to yourself, well, what if it didn't work? What if? So that ligament tears, you sew the ligament together, and then you put this other strap thing in with a couple of pins. Well, if the pins pull out or it doesn't hold, that's one thing. But if that happens, the ligament you repaired is going to get torn a second time. And if that happens, the chances of being able to re-repair it with as good a result are probably less. So you're kind of playing with fire, right? Because you could try this, and if it doesn't work, then you go back in again and do the conventional operation. And you're probably taking a chance that he'd never come back, that the ligament would be so messed up that you couldn't fix it. So I have to tell you, I admire the heck out of Dr. Shin for doing this. It not only was smart, but it takes guts. And in our field, rightfully so, you just don't go doing things because you think it might be a good idea, right? You don't go. You have to have good reasons if you're going to have some innovations. If you do a procedure that results in somebody having a permanent problem, it's a hard thing to live with. It's hard for the patient. It's hard for the surgeon as well. So I think it's. I can't think of another area. I mean, because again, I've been doing this for 35 years. I started my orthopedic residency at Rush in 1980. My sports medicine fellowship at the Mass General in 84. So that's 40 years, right? And the other things that I've seen, I fix ACLs. When I first started, we did this huge operation, big incisions, hospitalized, pretty good success. And, I was among the people in the era that was kind of developing a minimally invasive thing. And in my case, this is the late 80s. So, that's pretty significant. But, so the advent of arthroscopy was a huge change, but that was before. And we've refined our arthroscopic techniques. But I mean, I honestly, the common sports medicine injuries, meniscal tears and ACL tears and labrum tears, there have been refinements in technique in the era of arthroscopy, but this goes back to the 80s. But I can't think of anything else, honestly, where you would so totally change the paradigm of treatment that something that would take months to get better gets better in weeks.
It's quite an interesting venture as far as witnessing what Jared Goff went through with the surgery and being able in a short period of time to recover, so to speak, and get back out there and perform. As a layperson or a weekend warrior who may have experienced the same type of injury, is it recommended from a medical standpoint, from a doctor's perspective, to let the procedure, let it heal and take the time to get it back as close to normal as possible, as opposed to rushing, within 2 weeks to get back out there to perform your task?
I don't know. I mean, if you had that injury, and you were in a sport, I mean, if it were me or if it were my, son or daughter or whatever, I would probably, I mean, it kind of depends. See, there's a little more to it than this too. So, as I recall, and I haven't read this literature closely, but as I recall, the results of doing it quickly with the internal brace versus not, I think it's been studied, and I think it's the same. So, yeah, I mean, why not do it that way? I'll tell you what happens, though, is that, see, surgery is a funny field. It's surgeon dependent, a lot of things, right? I mean, so Dr. Shin doing it is one thing. But somebody who had never done it, only doing it once or twice and trying to do it is another thing. So when you're doing something that's new, it's important to make sure that the person who's doing it has some experience with it. I mean, if it were me, I'd probably go try to find him or somebody who had done a lot of them, because, having somebody doing it for the first or second time who just read about it, is your chances of not as good a result are probably greater.
Yeah, well, I mean, very well said and great advice, to say the least. I want to transition and, get back into it because, of course, we're still I don't know if you want to call it celebrating, but we just reached a point of a year anniversary of COVID, the virus hitting the United States. And our heart and prayer goes out to the families who have lost loved ones to this deadly virus, and over 400,000 cases for the year, and they're expecting more. But the big issue, and I started off the podcast saying that I was happy that we as sports fans get an opportunity to watch, any particular sporting event every weekend, because it takes our mind off of what our everyday experiences are. There are many skeptics out there, I included was one of them, that didn't think that one, we wouldn't get through the baseball season. And of course, we see the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers. I didn't think we'd necessarily make it through the NBA, although they went into the bubble. We see the Los Angeles Lakers with the NBA title for last year. And of course, I certainly didn't think we'll make it through the college football. And of course, congratulations to the Alabama Crimson Tide for winning the 2020 national championship, beating our beloved Ohio State Buckeyes. But Doc, I mean, we're in the NFL and the playoffs, and the Super Bowl is coming up in a matter of weeks. Despite all the opposition and the negative, skeptics out there, me being one, it's surprisingly that we had few cases and no deaths, and we made it through. And you were carrying the flag, said, "Hey, get out there, let's get it done, and we can make it happen." And you certainly were right.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'm glad to have been right about that. And there was some national person who said, somebody's going to die in the college football season, which hasn't happened. And it's I mean, the deaths are a terrible tragedy, obviously, but the other tragedy of this whole episode has just been, not necessarily saying it's intentional, but it's just been the excessive fear-mongering around this virus that has caused worse shutdowns that needed to occur, which have had worse consequences that needed to occur. And I've talked to other physicians who say, you would think from the way it's talked about that it's the bubonic plague or Ebola or something, instead of something that in the overwhelming majority of people does almost nothing, but does obviously causes death in a particular group of people. And so, I mean, I think what happened was inevitable. It's almost a fairly simple formula. I mean, you play, if people get it, they recover, and people are going to miss games, and it's going to be awkward. Some games are going to need to be scheduled and rescheduled, one thing and another. But I worried a little about very heavy set football players. And the one mortality I know of, as I mentioned before, was an unfortunate gentleman. I don't know the details, but it's almost a year ago, I think, who was said to be 6'3" and 330 pounds or so, and passed, unfortunately, before the regular season started. And so I worried a little, because being heavy is definitely a risk factor in being male. So I worried a little about that, but that doesn't seem to have been a problem either. So, and I'm glad. I was reading today, talking to people today about the Olympics. And I think the Olympics are scheduled to go on. What they'll do with fans in the stands, I don't know. But the fact is that these young, healthy people, there was an occasional death from the flu. So I'm not saying it can't ever happen, but the data is just overwhelmingly that it's safe. And it just makes no sense to not have it. I mean, if you go out there and people get sick and they can't go, then you deal with it. But to penalize everybody for that, I think makes no sense. And even the fans in the stands. I was just reading today that the Super Bowl, I think they're going to have roughly a third of the stadium full, 20,000 some fans. I think 2/3 of those 20,000 are going to be frontline healthcare workers, the free tickets, and then they're going to have some other people. And they're going to take all the proper precautions with masks. And I don't know, maybe they're even required people to have been vaccinated. I'm not sure. But it makes you wonder, now with these games now, they could have people in the stands, and they're outside. Stadiums are huge. You could socially distance. You could require masks. Heck, if you want, limit it to people who've been vaccinated or people who have had it. I mean, you could do that. And it's still not being done. And it sort of breaks my heart, because small businesses are still closing terribly and aren't reopening, and there has been overreach that's worse than it needs to be. And I'm not saying it's intentional. If you're a governor, and I think governors have overreached horribly, but from their perspective, they see people dying and they're doing the best they can. And so from their perspective, better to overreach and save lives. I mean, I understand their logic, and I feel for them too, because it's tough to be a layperson trying to deal with this. But you know, and I was saying wear a mask before anybody knew. I actually, we still don't exactly know about masks, but like, why not? You know, I mean, I'm a surgeon, right? I don't operate now as much as I used to, but you know, I would wear a mask most of my working life early on, and so what's the big deal? But so I hope the Olympics take place, and I'm glad fans are going to be in the stands at the Super Bowl. And again, it's an outdoor sport, you know. And so I'm not at all surprised that things have gone well. And actually, there's another layer, and I've talked about this every time we've talked about it, but there's a whole other layer. The vaccine's extremely important, no question. But there are treatments. I've mentioned before, hydroxychloroquine that we've done research on, ivermectin. There's no question that this stuff works. There's no question it would save lives. It's being used elsewhere in the world where they don't have the luxury, you know, where they don't have as much in the way of funds. So I'm just hoping that the word gets out, because there are people, you want to vaccinate people and prevent people from being sick, of course. Mm-hmm. But there are people who are getting it who could be treated with these drugs if there were greater awareness. And again, this isn't intentional, I don't think, you know, but you know, things are, I was interviewed in a radio show on a major radio station in Chicago a month ago, about 6 weeks ago, about, because we'd done these research studies, and the hostess said to me, well, do you think we'll be back to normal by 22? So this must have been maybe early December. And I said, you know, if we do things right, we should be back to semi-normal by early 21. And then we run into supply chain issues, right, which is kind of unfortunate with distributing the vaccine. But I mean, what's normal, right? Is wearing a mask normal? No, but I don't think wearing a mask is a big deal myself, you know, and distancing. But when I say normal, I mean people getting back to work, businesses not folding. So anyway, so I'm not surprised, and I think things will continue to be fine. And I'd like to see the pace accelerate. I'd like to see more sports allowed at a higher level. I'd like to see more fans in the stands with precautions going forward.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting and very well elaborated as far as explaining your thoughts and viewpoints on how we move forward. The interesting thing is, and some obviously see it as a setback, is the talk of a new strand of the virus that's hit the United States over the past couple of weeks or so, saying that it's more contagious and it spreads a lot more rapidly. Although fatalities may not increase, it still puts many of those with pre-existing conditions in a much vulnerable state and position. How do you address that regarding sports and the world of athletics trying to get back to some normalcy?
So, Jerry, I think that it's probably not a significant thing. It kind of goes back there, you know, and I think it gets back to bad news sells, right? I mean, people getting out there, it sells newspapers. And again, I don't, you know, I'm not saying anybody's doing anything bad on purpose, but it kind of gets back to the doctor who I'm sure was well-intended from Penn State, who said that, I forget exactly what he said, but maybe a third of the people were going to have heart problems. Remember that? After 19, it turns out not the case. It was retracted. And I think the thing is being examined so closely. I just don't think that it matters much. And why I think it's important not to get wrapped up in it is I think focusing big picture, if you take precautions, social distance and masks, if you vaccinate the people that should get vaccinated, and honestly, let the people that are healthy get it, you know? So now it's not even a 14-day quarantine. It's 10 days out of your life. Some of them get pretty sick, but they get over it. And I just hate to see, how shall I say, progress toward normalcy being retarded by being slowed down by things like this. Because I don't think, big picture wise, any of this is going to matter much. And I think that shutdowns matter a lot. So I'm not. Maybe it is more contagious, one thing and another, and but I just don't. And it's not going to be the last time people will come across this. Something else you said is very important. Getting it is one thing. Dying from it is entirely something different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the dying from it part that is what really matters. So I don't think, and the tone of it sometimes is, well, we've had this bad virus, and boy, now it's going to mutate, and it will turn into Ebola, and it will turn into the bubonic plague, and it hasn't, and I don't think it's gonna.
Yeah, I don't know, and what a difference a year makes, for sure, because we were all in the dark, so to speak, regarding this virus, and obviously, as you mentioned earlier, it's been compared to the flu, and there were some officials, local, state, and of course federal, leaders who, at one point in time, say, "Hey, you don't need a mask." And then as more information became available, oh, you better wear a mask. So unfortunately, again, over 400,000 people have lost their lives to this virus, and it affects all of us. And I agree with you. The important thing is to be responsible, not only to yourself and to your family, but your neighbor as well. The vaccine, I think that's a personal decision that we all have to make. But as far as getting back to some sort of normalcy, we don't know what that picture actually looks like. And you're right, you don't want the little guy to suffer, whether it's the small business owner in your local town or even the kids in education is concerned. You want to just make sure that we can live some sort of respectable, normal life. But until that time, and I look at it as like the Tylenol scare. Remember with the Tylenol?
Yeah.
There are people in this generation who have no idea what that means, but it's almost it's stunning that prior to that, I mean, you can literally walk into a store, open up a bottle of Bayer aspirin, take one out, and seal it back up, and go on. But now, after that big scare that happened, everything gets sealed. So with this pandemic, talk about getting back to some sort of normalcy. That normalcy, it may be the fact that we have to wear a mask every day, wherever we go when we go outside. So I don't know, but again, getting back to the world of sports, it's commendable that the respective leagues and the respective owners and commissioners on the chancellors, presidents on the collegiate level, all are doing their due diligence to get back to some sort of normalcy and letting the kids play and letting the athletes get out there and trying to keep the protocol as set as they possibly can, so that we can have some sort of normalcy, and hopefully we can move forward and get back to a normal way of lifestyle. Hopefully.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I think there should be more of it. And I think that I'm a physician, so I don't want to sound self-important, but I think the political leaders would do well to listen a little more to physicians, frontline physicians, because I think, look, if you're a political leader, I think it's kind of difficult to understand some of these medical studies, and particularly there were several fraudulent ones out there, as you probably know, that were retracted, that are still being cited, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a political leader, I think you're just like, wow, just whatever it takes, we just gotta, shut it down. And I don't blame them for doing it. Must be a very scary situation to be in, but I don't think that's what the decisions ought to be made.
Yeah,
and honestly, I don't think it should be made by centralized scientists either. I think it should be made by frontline physicians. I think they have the best handle on risk benefit, what works, what doesn't, how to protect people. So I don't know that that's been the case so far, as much as it should be. So I hope it is more going forward.
I hope so too. And I hope that people take more responsibility, again, personally, regarding their health and welfare. I think if you take the responsibility as a human, as a person, for yourself, for your family, and your neighbors, I think we can certainly get past this. I saw a disappointing quote, heard it locally here in Chicago, where a young lady, African American woman, in the Hammond Garry area about a week or two ago, got the vaccine in her 60s, and the reporter asked her, "How do you feel?" And her quote, and I'm paraphrasing the quote, she said, "I will feel much better once I get some McDonald's hamburgers inside me." And my mouth literally hit the floor because she's getting the vaccine to protect herself. But we talked about pre-existing conditions, and no offense to fast foods and McDonald's and all of that, but that's that's a fast food that contributes to the high rate of diabetes and heart disease in the Black and brown communities. And it was sad and disappointing to hear that this woman, that was her mindset. So I think that if we educate ourselves a little bit more and take responsibility for ourselves collectively as a country, we can get past this and get closer to some sort of normalcy. But I was really taken back by her response and disappointed because I think she represented thousands of people in the community who feels that way and lives that way.
Yeah, it's very sad, and it's unfortunate that it's gotten to be politically incorrect. Like what you're just saying is the truest words you could possibly say, but they've gotten to be almost politically incorrect to say it. Mm-hmm. And people who say that, Boris Johnson talked early on about, because obesity clearly contributes to mortality, about working on that, and he got shouted down, and hasn't brought it up since. The CEO of Whole Foods, not Bezos, but somebody who works for him, came out recently and said, the answer to the healthcare problem, he said, is just not to be sick so often. And he brought up, too, the incidence of obesity and all that kind of thing. And, there's a lot of attention given to, there's a recent cover of Cosmopolitan. Not something I usually read, but it was pointed out to me. And there was a heavy African-American woman. And then on Cosmopolitan in England, there was a heavy Caucasian woman. And the word was, "This is healthy." And the idea being comfortable in your own skin, but it got kind of shouted down because it's not healthy, and people said, especially now with COVID. But it's tough love about lifestyle is filled with landmines now. Of all kinds of things by saying. So I laud you for saying what you said, because it's absolutely the answer, and it's not said enough.
Yeah, and that's why I believe we have this platform and this podcast to speak the truth and to get the knowledge out there for people to make a decision regarding their personal life and their personal lifestyles. So I commend you and appreciate you for doing this over the past year, and we start our second season. And you don't have to like it, as far as our viewers are concerned and our listeners. But it's a matter of educating yourselves and taking that information and using it to the best of your benefit to take care of yourself. And that's, I believe, what the Sports Medicine Update podcast brings every week, and that's what we continue to try to deliver here.
Yeah, it'd be great if it were, had some influence in that regard, I think.
Well, if we can influence one person, I think we've done our job, and I'm sure we have.
Agree. I'm sure
we have. Hey, Doc, it's a pleasure and great talking with you always, and we can continue to go. But we will certainly look forward to talking with you next week, and let's see what's on the horizon. But if anyone wants to get more information for Dr. Chad Prodromos and find out more, whether it's COVID or a knee injury, an ankle injury, or whatever the case may be, for the weekend warriors, the amateur athlete or the professional athlete, how do they find you?
So our phone number is 847-699-6810. Got a great staff. Like to help any way we can. Just give us a call.
Sounds good. Dr. Chad Prodromos, thank you so very much. Stay safe and enjoy the weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week, sir.
Likewise, Jerry. Thank you.
Take care.